Movement in tactical first-person shooters, TAC FPS, is essential to learn because it is the first thing that players should get to know. Yes, shooting is part of TAC FPS, but movement is as essential as gathering information. Movement alone can take up about 33% of information gathering, the others being sound cues and ability usage. Players with exceptional movement can constantly gather information for the team while manipulating the same for the enemy team. In this video, we will cover 3 things about movement: actual movement fundamentals, shooting foundations, and, as a bonus, a positioning guide. But first, we will establish a very important mechanic to note. Peeker's advantage, a persistent problem in TAC FPS? In online-focused TAC FPS games like Valorant, there's this problem with peekers having a slight advantage over the one holding an angle. The idea of this advantage, aptly called Peeker's advantage, is that the one who pushes the angle will be rewarded with a slight advantage due to 4 things explained in this article: client frame rate, one-way network lag, server frame rate, and network buffering. Now, why is this a persistent problem in online matches? I could argue that this is a problem because holding an angle has been one of the most used tactical strategies in TAC FPS shooters since the dawn of time. But, say, for example, someone with about 100 milliseconds ping peeks against someone with about less than 20 milliseconds ping and holding an angle. The one with the highest ping will have the most advantage over the one with the lower ping because of how the network registers the moves, from peeking the angle to the holder seeing the peeker. But I digress. What I can say, though, is that Peeker's advantage will be there unless network infrastructures improve. The mere difference in ping, even in such a minuscule amount as milliseconds, directly affects gameplay for all players. However, we can always adjust our gameplay even with Peeker's advantage. Movement fundamentals. These are some of the most used movements in TAC FPS games like Valorant. I will list down about 7 things about movement fundamentals. May these guide you to have better movement. Strafing and counter-strafing. TAC FPS games utilize the WASD layout. Pressing W moves the character forward and S backward. A and D move the character left, A, and right, D. In the olden days, the default setting of A and D would be to look left and right. This old layout seemed counterintuitive as shooters became more advanced and relied more on the mouse for looking and shooting. Imagine playing Valorant all using the keyboard. Strafing became a standard movement for shooters and, of course, TAC FPS games. The more advanced form of strafing, counter-strafing, involves firing a shot and then strafing either to the left or right and then firing again. This mechanic takes advantage of the weapon's first shot accuracy before the firing and movement errors kick in. Jiggle peek. Jiggle peeking involves strafing with the intent to gather information. This is particularly useful for long sightlines like Haven's A and C long sections. Jiggle peeks are often used to bait out the sniper player on the opposite team. To know if you have succeeded in getting information, you must turn on the minimap vision cones in the options menu. Enemies will be marked with a red on the minimap when they are in your line of sight. Pre-firing angles can also be used here, which is the main difference between jiggle peeking from jump peek. A rather advanced peeking that is essentially a jump version of jiggle peek. This also baits out the opposing team's sniper by changing their crosshair placement from horizontal to vertical. Since jump peeking has more recovery time than jiggle peeking, the two can be mixed up to confuse the potential holder rather than doing 2 consecutive jump peeks. To do a jump peek, aim your crosshair to the direction you want to jump, right, for example. Then, hold W and D, then jump to the direction, then flick your crosshair in the opposite direction and then press W and A to go back to the angle you are hiding in. Another trick here is to do a 180-degree turn using the mouse without pressing A or D. If this seems complicated, the incorporated GIF will guide you properly. Slicing the pie. A movement fundamental that is directly lifted from actual military practice. Slicing the pie involves peeking and clearing all possible angles by incorporating jiggle peeking and crosshair placement. It is tricky to anticipate if someone is on a higher elevation in angles with an elevation change. To clear this, slicing the pie will likely work as this gives the peeker another look at the angle while securing the one they already cleared. Ferrari peek. Another advanced peeking technique where wide swinging, the origin of Ferrari peek, overlaps with the run and gun mechanic. Valorant has a unique version of the Ferrari peek, the pop and swing. Regardless of what it is called, the main idea of Ferrari peek takes peeker's advantage in knowing when to shoot as its foundation. Please take note of the latter. Knowing when to shoot means having the confidence to take the shot after a swing. What is the advantage of a Ferrari peek? It messes up the timing of the one holding an angle, especially in tight corners or when they are confirmed to be sitting ducks. Notable player who uses Ferrari peek, Poppin. Crouch peeking. Crouching while peeking takes advantage of messing up the crosshair placement of the one holding an angle by changing the height of the peeker. For high-skill players, ascendant, above, their crosshair is usually aimed at head height. By crouch peeking, the peeker will have a higher chance of winning the duel because of the change in height. This can be mixed up with a normal jiggle peek or a Ferrari peek. Shooting fundamentals. While movement is 1/3 of information gathering in Valorant, shooting is 1/3 of the whole gameplay of Valorant. Learning these fundamental shooting techniques will help you get better. Pre-firing. Pre-firing is a technique that pre-fires an angle or a wall bang spot an enemy might be, or commonly, holding. This is usually paired with jiggle peeking in long sight lines. Wall bang. Valorant is notorious for walls that are paper-thin, meaning a lot of the walls and map resources, boxes, for example, can be shot through and get some kills. On average, walls can be shot through with high-powered guns, Ghost, Sheriff, Vandal, Phantom, Marshal, Operator, Ares, Guardian, Odin. The most common is the Odin wall bang spot on a Cent B site to catch enemies in B main. A Sova dart or Cypher cam can help gather information to execute the wall bang. There is also a wall bang spot on Splits B back where there is a wooden bulletin board on the left side where enemies might hold. Crosshair placement. A big fraction of shooting in TAC FPS games is crosshair placement, where a properly placed crosshair could net some instant kills. For Valorant, ideally, the crosshair should be placed at head level. To practice this, you can go to the range and find out where the head level is for the bots. Also, there are some elevations and distances that you can try. Aim down sights, ADS. The right mouse button is usually used for ADS. In the early days of TAC FPS, this button usually did not ADS. Instead, it introduced alternative fire, like from semi-automatic to burst, or included attachments like a suppressor. In Valorant, some of these properties are either eliminated, since suppressors are attached to the Phantom, Ghost, Inspector, or incorporated, burst fire for Bulldog, when you ADS. Of course, there are pros and cons to using ADS. The pros are it stabilizes your aim compared to hipfire, which translates to more first-shot accuracy, and it also makes weapons effective at longer ranges, except for the Spectre. Meanwhile, ADS reduces movement speed and has a lower fire rate. These do not apply to sniper rifles. Spraying and bursting. One of the most popular shooting techniques in Valorant in all skill levels since it can be incorporated into the others I mentioned above. Spraying a wall bang spot, spraying the angle by pre-firing, spraying with ADS on. Spraying involves shooting 5 or more bullets in one press of the left mouse button. On the other hand, bursting uses more conservative and literal bursts when shooting 3 bullets or less. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest news and updates. Drop a comment below sharing your favorite gaming setup tips or what you'd like to see next on the channel. Let's build a gaming community together.